But he still does the stupid stuff. He'll say all the stupid stuff anyway. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Filipino Freethinkers podcast that's also a video. I'm Red.
Hi, I'm Sharmila.
And we're talking about catcalling and whistling.
Wolf whistling.
Wolf whistling. And if you don't know by now, you're probably not living in the Philippines because that's all that's in the news and on social media. We're talking about what Duterte did as a response to one reporter, like Mariz O'Malley.
Yeah, Mariz O'Malley.
Right? So he whistled, the kind of, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did he use the same notes? Anyway, he also sang to the person, and the husband, Rafi Tima, of course, expressed his disappointment online, and because he's also a GMA guy, people are now like attacking GMA, biased journalism. This whole thing started with that comment on journalists. That whole context of journalists are untrustworthy, they're biased and corrupt, and people are basically playing on this narrative now. But one of the things I mentioned talking about Duterte was this is an opportunity to have a wider discussion on harassment, on feminism. And we will zero in on this one particular issue of catcalling, wolf whistling, and maybe we'll illuminate the whole issue. Big ask, but I know you're used to this, so let's get started. Reactions online. What do you take? What do you think about the reaction?
Yeah, so it's a very diverse group of reactions, which is quite interesting. So on the one end, there's a group of people who are saying that was offensive and that was disrespectful. It shouldn't have happened. He should apologize. On the other hand, you have the variant, which is also espoused by Duterte's own spokesperson, right? Who says it's a compliment. It's an expression of fondness. Admiration. Beautiful people. You expect this. In fact, you should be thankful that you are being complimented.
Appreciate it.
It's just harmless play. He's being harmless and playful.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, there's the usual set of you're overreacting. Look at everything else he does. This is minor in relation to all of those things. And the hardcore free speech, free expression defense, right?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting how these are all.
Let's tackle them one by one.
Okay.
Let's start with the non-reactions. So what do you think of the reaction of course, champions of women's rights and feminism? They're the first ones you'd expect to make a fuss about this. And so people were looking to groups like Gabriela, to people like Pia Cayetano. What do you think about their reaction?
I mean, I think it's fairly obvious Pia is not pleased, which is why she said she doesn't support catcalling, but she still supports Duterte. I wish it had been more strongly worded. I wish she had gone on to explain why this was really unacceptable. I guess she's in a very difficult position because she's also like working with him and has been appointed the gender focal person for his administration.
Ouch.
I do wish that at least in private there is more education and teaching that's happening there behind the scenes. One Gabriela representative, Ilagan, I think says that it's cultural. I just don't think that's acceptable.
It's a Bisaya thing. That's become a catchphrase nowadays, apparently. It's a Bisaya thing.
I think misogynist language transcends Bisaya. I think it's very unfair to reduce Bisaya culture to that. Every culture has their own, right? I've met many Bisaya people who aren't like that, so I don't know that you can use that as an excuse. I feel that the non-reaction partly might stem from political allegiances and people being straight-jacketed by them, but you're supposed to be a check and balance to him, right? So please act like a check
Which is
and balance.
really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who do get that it is an offense to equality and feminism, they're keeping silent. Because it's Duterte, they're supporting this guy, and the usual suspects who would make a fuss on this are quiet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a passive aggression towards the opponents, those who aren't on the Duterte camp. But speaking of passive aggression, I'm thinking now, if Panelo and Duterte are saying that if you're beautiful, you will get catcalled by me, you will receive appreciation of beauty from me. So is it a kind of passive aggression then if you're a female reporter and you don't get catcalled. You don't get a wolf whistle. So,
Yes.
you're waiting for it. Everyone's waiting for it. Will he catcall? So does that mean now that I'm ugly? And imagine these reporters.
And that's exactly why
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with wolf whistling, especially in this setting, right?
Yeah.
Because it essentially tells female reporters that approval rests on the terms of the person who chooses to catcall you.
Yeah.
And if this is an indication of fondness or admiration, then this is something you should aspire to. And if you don't get this,
Yeah.
you're less worthy.
Yeah.
But then there is a massive power imbalance in that relationship. It's essentially just an assertion of dominance, an
Yeah.
assertion of power to make people uncomfortable, to include and exclude people purely on the terms of the president.
And they're
Yeah.
they're even terms that have nothing to do with the profession of journalism.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, maybe let's be fair. Like, people are hired or given preference when they look pleasant because they'll be
Yeah.
in front of a TV. But there are many other talents, like the way you talk,
Yeah.
the way you ask questions and
Yes.
follow-up questions. And like I saw one person at least post, like, if these news outlets don't want their journalists to get catcalled, then they should send ugly reporters to Duterte so that they don't get catcalled. That's victim blaming right there.
Yes, exactly.
It's your fault that you're catcalled. It's your fault that you're sexually harassed. Why are you so pretty? And I don't even know where to start. How do you start tackling this? We mentioned the issue of the women who aren't offended. Right? A lot of people online are saying, I wasn't offended. In fact, Mariz Umali said that she does not require an apology for Duterte. And I'm a woman, like a lot of people on social media are saying, I'm a woman, I'm not offended, you should not be offended. What do you
So
think of that?
just to speak to Mariz's statement, right? I think there is a misconception that people are potentially deliberately peddling, which is when she says, I don't expect an apology, I don't think she's also saying that was fine, I was not offended, or that I don't need one. I suspect she's just like, I don't expect one because this is the kind of person we're dealing with. But it was inappropriate, according to her, right? And I think that should be our metric. When someone finds it to be inappropriate, it is. Like, we don't get to make that judgment for that reporter. And also, I mean, the context in which the catcalling was happening, right? She was asking a question. Clearly, she was not trying to get his attention and not trying to get him to pay attention to her physical beauty and looks. She was simply asking a question. And he wolf whistles and she asks the question again. I think it's quite clear what her intention was. She wasn't trying to flirt with him or anything like that. So I think when we evaluate the appropriateness of actions, we need to look at context, right? And in that specific context, it just was not acceptable.
Yeah.
And there's actually like mixed responses from both him and his spokesperson, because his spokesperson is like, it's a compliment. He first tries to say, it wasn't sexual at all. What makes you even think it was directed at you? And then eventually backtracks, right?
Yeah.
And defends it and goes, it's my freedom of expression.
Yeah.
This inability for both parties to just own up to the fact that it was inappropriate, and here you have like various different excuses and spins offered for it, just makes it even more unacceptable, because it shows that they can't appreciate why it was wrong.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are also missing the point when they say, okay, there's this woman, she's not expecting an apology.
Yeah.
Why are all the rest of
Yes.
you expecting an apology for her? So it's kind of like they don't realize the universality of actions. You attack a woman, it's not just this particular woman you're attacking, especially if you're the president of a country.
Yes.
It's not just this particular woman, it's all of the other women around her. So even if Mariz Umali was not offended, if a woman thinks that's offensive, because Mariz Umali not only represents journalists but also women, also people,
Yes.
right? Because she is the president of the country. Then it's enough. Like, do you think it's an overreaction for people to use someone else as a proxy for the values that they want to expect from a president?
I don't think so. I don't think it's unfair, especially in this specific context where this same president has conceded to these values by signing on to an ordinance that penalizes wolf whistling, right? So
it's his signature
yes,
there.
Yes.
We're not misinterpreting the signature.
Exactly.
It's his signature
This isn't
there.
some random, arbitrary, controversial value that we are shoving down his throat, right? This is a value for which we have some degree of legal consensus. He's included, right?
Yeah.
So what's being fought for here is eminently reasonable.
Yeah.
And so I agree, yes, because if you are a president, whether you like it or not, it's both a blessing and a curse of your position. Your actions carry a lot of weight. You're seen as a role model, you're seen as a normative agent who shapes culture and norms, who defines the limits of what's acceptable and unacceptable, right? So, like you said, you treating a journalist like that sends a message to many female journalists out there that you might not get taken seriously when you ask questions. Or maybe that your passport to being taken seriously is if you are able to elicit such reactions from people, which is very unfair. Yeah. And it legitimizes the behavior of other men.
So a lot of people are taking the legalistic approach to this issue. So I saw one. You don't know what's satire, you don't know what's true. Maybe I'm at fault for this as well. I post a lot of satire. But somebody posted, the ordinance says, like, whistling, catcalling, like harassing a woman who's passing by. And Mariz Umali was not passing by. She was just standing right there. So therefore, it's not a violation because the woman was not passing by. So, maybe that's a joke. Let's take it as a joke.
Yeah.
But people are being technical about this. I saw one person, at least on my wall, defend it as Digong being a lawyer. Digong is a lawyer. He knows the boundaries of what's legal and what's not legal. And he's saying that, this person on my feed is saying that Digong, as a lawyer, knows that he did not violate because whistling by itself, without any kind of context surrounding it, cannot be construed as sexual harassment. There has to be prior, context to that effect.
Okay. So there are two parts to this, right? The first part is the ridiculous assertion that lawyers never commit crimes. So if ever a lawyer is accused of a crime, is that going to be the defense? I'm a lawyer and I knew magically that this was never going to be a crime. All right? That's the first part.
I'm giving Digong the presumption of innocence. I'm calling him an alleged lawyer. Yeah. He's an alleged lawyer. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
So this assumption that lawyers magically can never commit crimes is ridiculous. The second one is, so I myself am not a lawyer. I'm not even going to engage it on a purely technical level.
Yeah.
But I do think you have the letter of the law and you have the spirit of the law.
Exactly.
I don't think sexual harassment just happens on the streets. I don't think the ability of actions and words to make people feel safe and unsafe and to make people feel small is limited to when they're walking or passing by. I'm fairly certain the framers of that law will concede that the same effects can happen in a non-walking, non-passing by context.
Yeah, but people would argue that Digong should be an expert on that law. He signed it into law. So maybe he's the arbiter of what falls under that law.
Or alternatively, maybe he's the first breaker of the own law that he signed. Like that's a more plausible.
Oh no, that's blasphemy. That's blasphemy. Digong breaking the law he himself signed. Anyway, a lot of people are also defending it as a freedom of speech thing. Even Digong himself said, it's against my freedom of expression to curtail the kinds of expressions that I can make. What's your take on this?
So two things. One, there is a potential legal issue there, right?
Okay.
Which is a natural boundary to how much you can express your speech. Second is, even if it wasn't a legal breach, as president, we set a higher bar for you. Like, of course, you can say whatever you want as a private citizen, but the moment you assume the office of the presidency, there are certain norms that you should hold yourself to. And I think you need to be a bit more responsible with your language and with your actions.
Do you think it's fair to expect so much of the president of the Philippines?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not arguing that he should.
Yeah.
And this is the misnomer, right? People think that he's being expected to be this super polished orator.
Manicured Manileño.
Yeah. Who sweet talks his way through everything. That is not my expectation of him. I don't think many people expect that.
Okay.
Honesty is good. Honesty is refreshing.
Authenticity is what people
is good.
mostly, I think, about him. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm sympathetic to that view. I'm not a fan of artificial, overly polished speeches either.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure why inherent in honesty is being offensive. And why is wolf whistling such an inherent part of honesty? Yeah. And if he would argue that it is, then my next argument would be, you need to change that. You need to change how you are.
I remember this business management leadership book. It's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And the main point of that is that most successful people excuse the bad behavior, the rude, arrogant, narcissistic behavior that they have like in this way. I am president because it's my confidence that got me here, and if I get rid of these bad attributes, then it's throwing the baby with the bathwater. Like maybe I won't have the courage needed to change this corrupt system anymore. So take the good with the bad kind of thing. So I don't agree with that. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we have Digong. He's authentic. He wants real change.
Yeah.
But is it necessary for him to be rude and to sexually harass
No.
and
Yeah.
berate everyone who disagrees with him?
Yes.
I don't think so.
In fact, I would argue his success was despite those things.
Exactly.
Right? And if those things can get corrected, then he's going to have even far more support behind him.
Okay. It's a totally different discussion,
Yeah.
but I actually think that he succeeded also because of it. And it's an entirely separate discussion. Just to summarize, it's the kind of populism where people want something different, and
Yeah.
his acting in a crass manner and speaking in a crass manner basically signals that he's not like the elite, like the
No,
corrupt elite.
I agree with
and
you.
people like Zubiri, who's corrupt himself.
I'd rather a foul-mouthed person.
He
Yeah.
said, I'd rather have a foul-mouthed leader than an elite who's corrupt and dishonest.
Okay.
So that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, so first, that's a false dichotomy, but
Yeah.
whatever with Subiri. It's more, I agree with you. I think that's part of his appeal, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, which parties does he need to buy into his leadership at this point? That's already his base. They will support him regardless.
Yeah.
So if you really want to be a unitive candidate or a unitive president, a unifying president, you probably need to make some adjustments
Yeah.
on that front. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's a formula that worked to get him elected, but to be effective as a president, you probably need more buy-in from other sectors,
Yeah.
right?
So 16 million is a lot,
But it's not.
but
the
it's not
country.
the country. Like
Yes.
we're 100 million or so.
Exactly.
So, like you can argue that he's offending the majority now. More than ever.
Yeah.
Moving forward, how do we tackle this? Because there are wrong ways. I think that people could be overly aggressive towards the people
Yeah.
who catcall, and that would just further entrench their beliefs, their
Mm-hmm.
behaviors. I would rather be stay like this and be wrong than agree that you're right. That kind of behavior. So how do you begin to address the issue?
I think more than ever we need to be vigilant, and education is a really important part. Ideally, we can rely on the people in his inner circle to correct him, and I really hope that is happening. I hope this whole move to not hold press conferences first is intended in that direction. And failing that, because I don't know how reliable the inner circle is in correcting him, failing that, I mean, the rest of us need to clarify that these things are not okay. And that's what makes this thing very unfortunate, because these wins that we've made in treating women with respect in any profession, in taking them seriously, in not trying to exclude them through formal and informal ways, are very fragile wins, right? They can easily be overturned. And I worry that that's what's happening when you have a president who's very flippant about these things. But I think that needs to be pointed out. And I think like our teachers, our parents need to be on alert and to point that out. Not in a way where you shame people and we're very aggressive towards them. In a way that's still more other-centered, in a way that's still more respectful. But we need to point it out.
Yeah, so it needs to be pointed out. I'm not sure though if you even do it in the context of Duterte.
No.
Because if you do it in that way, it becomes a contest now.
Yes.
Where, as I've mentioned earlier, if Digong is wrong, then that means I made a mistake when I voted, and I will not lend any weight to an argument that discredits Digong.
Yes.
So, unfortunate for the advocates of LGBT rights, which he insulted again, by the way. I mean, in his recent victory speech, of women's rights, all of these other issues that tend to be associated with the more educated and elite institutions. Again, I really believe that Digong is just signaling his difference from that. So we do it in a way that's not aggressive. We aim for education rather than refutation,
I agree.
that kind of thing. But it's still an ideal, I think, that few people can really
I mean,
attain.
we just have to work around him, and then ensure that the culture is reinforced. I mean, this culture of respect and equality is reinforced such that it becomes immune
Yeah.
to transgressions from him.
Yeah, so we do our best, we educate people. When all else fails, let's just go to the south and breathe the air. Thank you for watching this. If you want to discuss this, we will do so at our next meetup. Details of that on our website, on our social media sites. On behalf of Sharmila, Garrick, Max Pepper, the analyst desk, our millions of staff. See you next week. We're on Esquire. Thank you, Esquire, and bye, Esquire.